The moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerfherder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
Oh, I guess I already consented before.
You already consented, yes.
I did.
So let's all consent. And let's begin.
Great.
First of all, we want to welcome back Christina.
Hello.
I thought it's
I know you guys miss
I
me so
remember
much.
you.
The ghost of podcast past.
Ooh. Just in time.
Just in time. There's no way she could deny this episode.
No, I would have done this from anywhere.
John Wick 4 is what
Yeah.
we're talking about this week. Did you watch it when it opened or did you wait?
We watched it opening weekend.
You did.
Yeah.
Okay.
That
You
was
couldn't wait.
also-
You could not hold back.
I think that she was very adamant that she could not wait.
This is the movie, I think, of all the movies that were coming out this year. This and the Spider-Verse sequel were actually the two that I was looking forward to the most.
Mm.
And I have a lot of thoughts about how this played out because maybe Jeff should do the news first, but one of the things we can talk about is that Lionsgate initially greenlit them to do chapters 4 and 5 and then pulled back on that and told them, no, just do chapter 4. And I think that affected the way they told the story here because they thought they weren't going to be able to do a chapter 5. So I have a lot of thoughts about how this particular story played out and also the length, which I think is related to not being able to do a second movie.
Yeah. Well, the movie is doing fantastic box office wise. So you can tell the studio is, I'm sure, has already said, oh, what about another one? What about another one?
Well,
correct.
that's the interesting
exactly,
thing.
Yeah. And all of a sudden they're like, hey,
They
wait a
have
minute.
said to them, and we obviously this will play into the way this film ends. They have now said, maybe you guys can do a chapter 5.
Well, it's very
You
ambiguous.
idiot.
It's like
Thank you.
Yes.
the end of this movie comes
I
with
agree.
a wink and a nod. So
All right,
I agree.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Yes. As we get into this, we are going to spoil the hell out of this movie. So just heads up on that. We want to talk about the back end movie, which is The Killer.
The Killer.
John Woo?
Yes, The
John
Killer.
Woo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
John
So
Woo's
this
The
is
Killer.
we are doubling down on this assassin crap. But yeah, we can do a little bit of news. Chris Carter has announced X-Files reboot.
No, thanks.
They already did.
Not at all. No. This is no Mulder, no Scully. This is,
It's like new actors and new.
This is going to be helmed by Ryan Coogler, who we know from the Black Panther franchise.
Mhm.
He is going to all new diverse cast.
Okay.
So I don't really know much more than that.
Okay. Now I'm like a maybe because I
Yeah,
like
correct,
Ryan
right.
Coogler.
Yeah, right.
This sounds like something somebody made up.
Well, but no, I guess
this
Chris
doesn't
Carter,
compute.
Chris Carter is the one who's come out. He was on a podcast, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to give credit to the proper show, but he announced that he's involved, but no Mulder, no Scully. So my take is that this is going to be an all new characters altogether. They're not going to recast Mulder. Those characters are done. But if you're going to give me Monster of the Week, you're going to give me alien conspiracies, you're going to give me, alien abductions. I'm kind of in. Let's take a different spin on this. We all love the X-Files.
I mean, I liked it
numerous
up until the
iterations.
end of season 8. And I say that not because I disliked Doggett and Reyes. I did not
Right.
dislike them. I just didn't like the what they did with Mulder and Scully.
Yes, correct.
In
Right.
season 9, I was like, their story ended.
Yeah.
The last episode of season 8 is perfect.
Yeah.
To me, that's perfect.
Yeah, that's
And
the
then,
problem with these TV shows that, they become popular. You want to keep going. We just talked about the possibility of a John Wick 5 now. It's
right.
like sometimes the story is over. Your character's arc is done.
I never watched like the newer series that they
when
did.
They brought them all back. That was
because I just needed, in my mind, I needed the story to be over. And at the end of season 8, I just pretend that nothing happened.
Nothing existed. Yeah, you can do that with many of these franchises. I don't even acknowledge the sequel Star Wars movies. Nope. Luke defeated Vader. We're all good. I'm intrigued. Like you said, Coogler is involved.
Yeah.
Let's see what he brings to the table. So I just thought that was interesting. And again, I don't really have a ton of information other than that announcement. So my other news item, Christina, you've come out numerous times basically pointing out that we are in superhero fatigue mode.
Oh, yes, we are.
We are knee deep in this crap. I guess Amazon didn't get your notes. So because they've
not just mine.
Well, they have doubled down and they just brought on board Joe Quesada, who was a former Marvel editor-in-chief. And he will have exclusive first look for film and television deals, focusing on adapting existing and new comic book IP for Amazon, for the streaming giant. So
I just sent you guys an article the other day.
I know. That's why I thought it was funny that
it's like, it's not just me. And I think that the box office numbers, including for Ant-Man, are reflecting this. There's a lot of hand-wringing in Marvel about how little money Ant-Man has made compared to the other films. And I do think it's a sign of like this backsliding. People really would like to see something else.
Well, I think with the Amazon thing, that doesn't necessarily mean superheroes, though. There's a lot more stories out there in comics than superheroes.
Oh, yeah. And it's funny, like we could point out some, movies that people wouldn't even realize were started out as comic books. Quesada is a pretty big name. He's been around Marvel for 24 years.
Because it's Amazon. So it's not going to be Marvel and it's not going to be DC. So it's going to have to be indie stuff.
It could be everything, I guess. I don't know. Because here's the other thing I found out is that this is on top of this massive Amazon deal that they made with Phil Lord and Chris Miller, which they are going to be dealing with the Sony owned Marvel properties as TV series.
So could be a Spider-Verse series?
It could be Lego Spider-Man. I don't know. They're not going away. I wonder, like going back into like the 50s and 60s, by the time you get to 70s, people's like, enough of these Westerns. Why do we have to have so many Westerns?
Well, I think it's not
a genre.
It's not necessarily that I want them to go away. It's that I don't want it to be the only thing that's released. And it really has.
It is a monster. It's a mammoth entity right now.
And it's dictating like Marvel's success has dictated now what other studios will do.
Everyone wants to duplicate it. Why wouldn't you?
Right. But then like after a while, people like the one thing I hear so often from people, and I don't know about you guys, but I always hear, I want to go to the movies and just see something new. I don't want to see something that's
I try to explain to somebody that, these movies cost millions and billions of dollars. You're going to invest in something that already has existing IP that people recognize.
Right.
That's why you get the 5th Addams Family movie.
But the whole thing is that, and you guys have heard me sing this song before, so this is nothing familiar.
Hold on, let me get my violin.
This is very familiar. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You know the song, jump in on the chorus. The whole thing is that, studios used to make mid-budget films, so the stakes weren't as high. You could take a risk on something that was original. And, if you made a film for $30 or $40 million, you don't have to make $500 million to get your return.
They can't help themselves, though. Look at John Wick. That turned into a monster, and that started with humble beginnings. So the studio maybe not so much in this case, but they try to bastardize everything. Yeah.
Squeeze it.
Yeah.
Get every drop and dollar.
Oh, made money? Let's make more.
Yeah, right. Because now we have a commodity that people recognize. We know the name John Wick.
So. Well, that's the thing. Like when came out, it was like a fresh thing that had been made for not necessarily a huge budget, had been made for like a reasonably sized budget. And, you know, it took everybody by surprise because it was something new, you know?
Yeah.
And now
let's beat it to death.
Yeah, let's beat it to death and everyone else copy it. So like I said, it looks like superhero movies are not going anywhere. Anybody who's involved right now, just please pick up the phone and call Zachary Levi. This guy's losing his mind.
That's what
I mean, just give him a job somewhere.
No, and especially if you happen to be in the theater waiting for Shazam to start, then that's the best time to call him because that'll make his day.
He's actually waiting outside the theater. Poor Zachary Levi. But we're not here to talk Shazam. That was last week. Yeah.
Go listen to that episode if you're disappointed at all.
So that's it.
Let me bring something to the table.
Okay,
They've already released Shin Kamen Rider in Japan.
Yeah.
It's out. We're talking about this like it was some faraway thing just a few weeks ago. I'm like, it's already out. You could see it if you really had, your druthers.
We won't see it for another 3 years.
Well, that's the thing. It took Shin Ultraman came out in Japan in May of last year.
Yeah, we've been talking about it for a very long time.
And we didn't get to see it until 8 months later. So.
And even then, that was a very, very limited window.
Yeah. Sometimes it's like getting the distribution for these Japanese films over here. So weird because they're like, even though Kamen Rider isn't as big here as like Godzilla or Ultraman, there's still an audience for it.
Yeah.
One thing I've noticed, like if you want to watch, say, like K-dramas, if you want to watch Korean TV, there's a ton of it available. It's on Netflix, it's on Amazon, if you know enough
to look for it. Yeah.
There's even a K-drama on Disney Plus.
Really?
There's a ton of Korean drama that's available in the US. I mean, some of them are comedies, they're just called K-dramas.
Are they? Yeah.
And some of them are horror. Some of them are other
I don't want to
things.
accidentally watch that then. Like, let's watch this fun little movie. Oh.
But the point is like a lot of Korean TV is available here. So I'm wondering why something like that is so available. But then like distribution channels from Japan to here, like you can get a lot of anime because Crunchyroll distributes it, and actually Netflix distributes a fair amount of anime. But like some of the live action stuff, it's just like this barrier of getting the things over. Like Toho needs its own channel. There's a streaming service for everything else.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a missed opportunity for someone to jump on this.
Yeah. Also, the fact that they've made it and it's out a year after the last Shin movie, Ultraman.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get started on another one then.
Well, they saw how popular it was. They're like, let's keep making these movies. It's like, wait a minute. Did you copy John Wick?
Well, it's out there. I just noticed that. There was a review. I didn't read it, but somebody actually had seen it and reviewed it.
All right.
But there you have it. All right. So should we get into this, Mr. Wick?
We should, Mr. Wick. This guy can't get a break. He can't cut a break.
Especially not in this movie. The entire world literally is after him in this movie. He can't rest because everyone in this world is an assassin. There's no civilians. We saw civilians whatsoever. We saw that in the third one, but yeah, they really kind of ramp it up. No police either. They're just paid off to not interfere at all.
Right. I'm assuming we all saw the trailer for Sisu.
Yes. That looks wild.
Why? We need to cover that big time.
That looks wild. It was so funny.
It's John Wick. That's what
John
it
Wick
is.
in the Old West, yeah. Which is fine. Like I said, we just got done saying, right, you see a formula, it's like, boom, we can just replicate it.
It was so funny because we saw the preview for Evil Dead Rise.
Yeah, I am sick of seeing that trailer, by the way.
And my son kind of looks at me and I'm like, are we going to go? And he's like, I don't know.
Good for him. Good for him for drawing the line. That movie looks horrific. That is uncomfortable.
But
did you see the thing before we go on about Evil Dead Rise? It premiered at South by Southwest.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a panel. Bruce Campbell was there.
Yep.
And there was a showing and it had a heckler. Did you see that footage?
Yes, and he told them get out.
Bruce Campbell told him to get the F out.
Yes, he did.
Why you heckling Bruce?
I don't know. And Bruce said, "Why are you here?" That was my question as well.
Yeah.
Was the guy mad that he wasn't?
No, the
in
guy was like,
movie?
"This movie sucks," because you could hear what he was saying.
Yeah, I saw
And he was
that.
in the theater. He was in a box seat. I'm like, what the hell is this guy even doing there?
It's one thing when people sit here behind their keyboard and they got keyboard balls and they just start, say crap, and you would never say to someone's face. And now it's society is just crumbling. Just if you don't like it, keep your mouth shut.
Well, I bring it up only because we saw the preview for Evil Dead Rise, and the preview looks pretty wild, right? It looks gory,
Insane,
and
insane,
like all this
yes.
stuff. And then we see the preview for Sisu, and there are literal Nazis getting blown into like little bits, and I'm like, but you want to see this? But
Red band,
Listen,
red band trailer all the way.
I don't want to see mom turn into a demon and chase after her little girl.
No, I think
will
maybe
see Nazis getting blown up.
I think maybe it's the cheese grater that separates the men from the
that
boys.
alone is enough to.
He basically said to me, he's like, okay, I'll either go see Evil Dead Rise or I'll go see the Boogeyman. He's like, you pick one.
Yeah, that was the other trailer. Saw Boogeyman.
I mean, he likes horror movies, but he's like, I don't
No,
know. But then he told me he wanted to watch Terrifier. I'm like, you're going to watch the Terrifier and you won't go see Evil Dead Rise?
Yeah, I'm not watching that.
Oh, wow. See, Jim has a limit too. I'm glad to see that we all have.
Because my wife watches a lot of that stuff that I won't. And she was telling me about Terrifier. I'm like, yeah, that's not something I ever have on my radar.
Terrifying. Huh?
I mean, people who saw the second one in the theater were supposedly running out throwing up. That's how gory it is.
How is that entertaining?
I don't know.
What was entertaining is in my screening of John Wick, I had a couple who sat right in the front row, and he yelled at the screen the entire time. And it
oh my gosh, it's so
very
funny that you
enjoyable.
Say that.
I actually befriended them at the end because I made sure that they stayed through the end credits. Like,
it's funny that you say that because there was a couple sitting next to us, and the guy was talking through the whole movie about things that are happening on screen, and I wanted to be like, can you not keep like? How hard is it to keep silent?
The last thing on my mind would be to befriend someone who was doing that. Like, can you come to every one of my movies?
No, he was very entertaining. I will say about the time that John Wick fell out the window and bounced off the van. He's like, you're not even breaking a pinky. He's
because he's a superhero.
Yeah, come on.
No, he's a superhero. That's just like in any Marvel movie. They fall and they, I would kill anybody else, but they're fine. Even Black Widow, who's a regular human.
That's right.
He's just a superhero. You just have to let it go.
Because there's lots you have to let go in John Wick, but once you do,
okay.
You free fall happily.
Let's go.
2 hours, 45 minutes.
Yeah, I was very concerned about this because you had already gone on about the third chapter being 2 hours.
This is something that you really have to plan in advance because we are all responsible adults here. We have lives, we have responsibilities. And sometimes 3 hours is difficult to reconcile. So I had to make sure that I was going on a weekday, earliest show I could find, which was 11:30, because I had, things to do later on in the day. So that's how I watched it on a Wednesday afternoon, 11:30, with about 3 other people in my theater. And let me tell you, I enjoyed this probably more so than any of the other 3 John Wick movies.
That's amazing.
Okay. All right.
And this is from somebody who was grumbling, sitting down like, 2 hours and 45 minutes. Who do they think they are? Set piece after set piece. I was just like, damn.
They convinced you. They finally got you.
Yeah.
After 4 movies. But this is one of the things though I want to talk about with the length, because my feeling, I have no evidence for this, but my feeling is, they initially had a story that they wanted to stretch over 2 movies.
Yeah.
And what they probably did was cut some elements of that and then try to cram everything into one big movie, because it feels like it really should probably be 2 movies, and that the fight with the Marquis should be leading toward a confrontation with the actual high table.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
You still don't see that damn table.
No,
I want to see the damn table.
And I think
it's a card table. It folds up.
Like I said, Lionsgate had initially greenlit a 2-film series. It seems weird because every single film was profitable. So I don't know why they were suddenly like, no, you can only do one. You know, it just doesn't make any sense. You know, we'll change the script, and they made alterations and they did stuff, and they were like, okay, this will be the last one. And now just the opening weekend, Lionsgate said, you know what, maybe you guys can do 5.
Yeah, correct, right.
And Chad Stahelski and Keanu Reeves both said, well, if we can come up with a good enough script, we'll do 5.
Right.
I just don't understand why they changed,
It's got to be money. Yeah, it's all money.
But
he also, Keanu Reeves, 50 plus years, and he's like, I can't keep doing this forever.
Yeah, I listened to an interview with Keanu Reeves, and I want to point this out because people keep saying this over and over, and they keep saying he does his own stunts. And he says, I don't do stunts. I do action. He's like, I'm not a stunt man. And I really have to say, I respect him for that.
But I think that people lose, right. It's automatically, I'm a stunt man. It's a stunt man. It's like saying, Tom Cruise does his own stunts. No, there's plenty of guys. Stahelski was his stunt man.
Yes.
This guy stepped in and took over for Brandon Lee when he was killed on set all those years ago. And I have nothing but the utmost respect for this gentleman, because I've done a fairly deep dive, and he has nothing but safety on set with these guys and what they can and can't do. And Keanu wants to be front and center. He wants that Arc de Triomphe, he's really driving that car around,
right?
Is that considered a stunt? He's not getting hit by a car. He's not bouncing off that car. That's what you have those stunt guys for. This is what they get paid for.
Yes. And that's what he says. He's like, I don't get hit by a car. I don't fall from a building.
Right.
He's like, I can do action. He's like, I can pick up a gun and shoot it in the scene. He's like, or I can throw somebody, or I can take a fall.
Yeah.
But, he's like, I'm not doing stunts. And he's really, very vehement about this, and I respect him for it, because so many actors will sort of take credit for doing things that they don't necessarily do. And it's part of this mythology that's built up around these actors in these films,
because actors suck. Now, but my favorite piece of action from Keanu Reeves is seeing him stand up and give a seat away on the subway. That is probably far and away the best action sequence that I've ever seen him in. And I applaud him for that. So he is probably, and don't disappoint me, Keanu, he is somebody worth investing in terms of actors. But getting back to the length of this and the controversy about it not being parts 1 and part 2, I would hate this if it was a part 1 and part 2.
Yeah, because where are you going to
4 and 5, because it's a logical, and I think mostly it's the action set pieces that make up the length. They're incredibly long,
which is weird.
But the thing is you don't get bored of them, because in a lot of movies like this, if you had like a 15-minute action piece, by the end of it, you'd be like, okay, I've seen enough.
That's where the fatigue came in with the third one, where he's just making his way up through that glass building. It's like, all right, how many guys can you take out? But you're right. But from what I understand, they added 2 of these action sequences in the last minute. Like they were, the Arc de Triomphe, that whole set piece is incredible.
But it's all working its way up to the Sacré-Cœur. So you're in France. It makes sense that it's one long journey.
No, and it's the entire franchise. These first 3 movies, we talk about them, watching them back to back, and each one of them kind of ramps up. So every one of these action pieces in this movie just gets more and more absurd as you go toward the end. He's trying to get to his, it's literally, Sisyphus pushing a boulder up the hill.
Yeah.
Although I will have to say, I mean, we can get into the actual plot of it, but Christina, you gave Winston way too much credit, because this guy did not have a plan.
Hey, but guess what?
No plan. He was covering his ass, and he threw him off the building.
But he didn't even want to kill him. He said, "I shot him."
That's right. I told you.
He did it without the intent. He's like, he's fallen off buildings before.
Well,
I'm sure he can take it.
Yeah. Apparently, he got the note that he's a superhero.
That they were not enemies. I told you that they were not enemies.
But he wasn't really looking out for his best interest. He's like, I'm covering my ass. And if this is what it takes.
But I think what's interesting about Winston is you get that little reveal at the end that they're actually from the same clan, that you never saw before, because you never saw his tattoos before until the very end of this film. So you start to understand a little more why there's this connection between them.
And there's a real connection once he's excommunicado.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think, one thing that did it made me sad on multiple levels. Obviously, this film was shot long before Lance Reddick's
this was really kind of like hit a little too close to home.
But there's a very shocking scene where Sharon is killed, and I was like, I can't believe they even did that. Actually made me think they really meant this to be the last chapter,
the last one,
because how could you have the Continental without Sharon?
That didn't really make sense to me, that why they wouldn't shoot Winston, because the Marquis being the way he was, his explanation really should have been, we want you in the rest of the movie, so I'm going to shoot your concierge.
Right, yeah. We're going to show you there's ramifications, but kind of, yeah.
But that was incredibly sad for multiple reasons. First of all, because I love him as a character in the film, but then also because, just horrible coincidence that the actor passed away shortly before the release of this film.
Mm-hmm. So you cannot separate that when you see the scene.
No, right, yeah. Although I did read that he already filmed scenes for Ballerina.
Yes.
So he could so character-wise, which I'm assuming, kind of fills in gaps.
So
because this is the first John Wick movie that doesn't pick up immediately where the other one left off.
Right.
We have a sizable, I don't know how, he was pretty beat up at the end of last movie.
It may have, because apparently there is a subway train that runs from New York internationally under the ocean. So
what is the Bowery King?
The Bowery King steps off the subway right from New York into Paris. It's all, again, you're introduced to all these other employees of the high table. They employ more people than McDonald's does internationally.
Did you get free fries?
So you have the Elder, you have the Harbinger,
Clancy Brown,
the Marquis. So the movie opens and it's like, Lawrence of Arabia again with horses.
Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm. And they actually filmed at the Rock. This is all practical, by the way.
Yeah. So Wick pisses off the high table even more, if that was possible.
Well, I mean, at this point, what do you got to lose? Nothing. You're playing with house money at this point. You've bounced back. How many times?
And these guys that he has guns on, they're big talkers, None of them think that they're going to get shot. Like, this guy can't. Have you seen the other three movies, dude?
Apparently, they were rented out in their Blockbuster. They're like, I haven't seen your movie yet.
The Elder is legit shocked that he's shot. So then we get Lawrence Fishburne, as we mentioned. The Bowery King has been sheltering Mr. Wick because, they're buddies. They're not turning on each other after all that they've been through in the last three movies. Gets him a brand new suit. Now, for some reason, all the bad guys have suits like this that are bulletproof, because whenever they're getting shot, you seem like Batman, but all their suits are really ill-fitting and they're like David Byrne talking head suits. The bad guys, except for Wick, man, he's got his is tailored to him.
I don't know, that big guy killer, he was pretty pimped out.
Was that Steve Coogan? No, it wasn't Steve Coogan.
No,
but I thought it was Steve Coogan.
He was in a fat suit, though, that guy.
It was Scott Adkins.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy's like 15, 16. He's like a master of like 16 different type of fighting styles.
At the beginning of the movie, the New York Continental is destroyed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boom, 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 boom.
The big question, because the Harbinger, Clancy Brown, goes to the hotel and tells Winston to get his affairs in order, has a huge hourglass.
I know. Nice set piece. He's like, look what I brought.
Bam. And he turns it around. And apparently the Marquis got him on speaker because he's got to do it at the exact same time in his office because he's got
time's up. Winston. Wait, no. We got a couple more over here. Wait 1 second. Wait 1 second. But this is where you bring in Clancy Brown and you give him nothing to do. It's just his voice. And I'm like, when he was reading off the rules of the duel, you have to end that with there can be only one. But missed opportunity.
He's got to have gravitas, and Clancy Brown does.
He does, but I want to see him do something. One fight scene, something, nothing.
I mean, I think the problem is that there's
Harbinger.
There's so much crammed in here, right? There's so much going on. And I did find it interesting, though, that the Harbinger also was missing his ring finger. Did you guys know that? Notice that?
Yeah.
Well. Yeah.
So there's like a whole backstory to him that I personally would be interested in finding out about. So maybe this is a character who would return and you would find out more about him. But we haven't even talked about the number one reason why this movie is awesome.
Chirrut.
Donnie Yen.
Chirrut is in it.
Did somebody see Rogue One? They're like, oh, this guy can do blind. Let's do it. Let's hire him.
Donnie Yen, a Hong Kong cinema legend who has literally been doing this forever. As you pointed out, he played Chirrut in Rogue One, which is where he's probably best known to American audiences, where he also played the blind swordsman.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
which is
pigeonholing this guy.
Like an Asian film trope. Although I did notice, sort of interestingly, he seemed like he was, even though he himself is Chinese, it seemed like he was doing some of the moves of Zatoichi, who is the Japanese character, the blind swordsman played by Shintaro Katsu. I noticed it specifically in the way he held his sword sometimes, because Shintaro Katsu, when he held the sword as Zatoichi, he would put his knuckles forward and swipe like that. And you saw Donnie Yen do that a couple of times.
Obviously, he's self-taught, because it's not like he's watching videos of other. This is how I should be doing it.
Well,
right.
YouTube videos are not going to do it. I want to know why he has a picture of his daughter in his watch, because he can't see.
He knows it's there.
Okay.
He knows it's there. He's so funny. His character is so funny, and he provides a lot of levity in some of these scenes that are so serious. Particularly the scene when they're in Osaka and he's just sitting there eating noodles.
Oh, I know. Are you gonna do anything? What are you doing? And he puts the noodles down and then he just does.
He's like, yeah, I guess I better do something.
Yeah, he's letting these idiots.
And again, I made a joke about the high table having as many employees as McDonald's. John Wick has a similar number of old friends that just pop up in every single movie. So he's probably got still a roster of old friends to be played by classic actors coming up if there are any sequels.
Even though we've been told numerous times that he's run out of friends, we always seem to find somebody else. And Bowery King, even though he's the king of New York, just like you said, jump on a train and he'll be right over there. He's franchising. The
other person I want to mention, because he appears in Osaka for the first time, is the tracker. Mr.
Love
Nobody.
This guy, Mr. Nobody.
Shamir Anderson.
He needs his own movie.
He does.
This character.
Ooh, as soon as I saw that dog, though, I'm like, they're going to bond over that dog by the end of the movie.
Yeah, of course.
And they did.
Because we don't see his other puppy at all.
Well, yes, you do. Bowery King is walking the dog at the beginning of the film.
Okay.
He's walking him down the subway, and then at the end of the movie, Bowery King has the dog.
Okay.
By the gravestone.
So he's a Bowery dog now. Okay.
It's jumping ahead a little bit, but that scene where he's finally committed, the tracker's finally committed to killing John Wick because he's gotten the number he wants from the marquee, and then John Wick saves his dog. And then it's like, okay, well, I guess I can't kill you.
Yeah, damn it.
But now he has to egregiously kill the guy that was gonna kill his dog.
That's right. That's right.
That's fine by me. I did like his character a lot.
Yeah, and he's another one who like this whole interesting thing with the Notebook. And
so what's up with that? That's nothing that's come through in the other movies, right?
No. It's almost like a record of this guy and like what he's wants from life, what his history is. There's like all these little clues in there. And Shamir
I'm glad
Anderson,
you brought that up, because I forgot. If that was his or if he had taken it from somebody else. Because
you never seen Gravity Falls? That's what he's got.
That is true.
But he, the actor Shamir Anderson, said that he did it all himself. He
get
all these little things in the Notebook.
Oh, he's pretty good. Yeah. He had some like likenesses of Keanu in there. And
it's kind of a cool thing because, again, if you go forward to a sequel, or spin-off with this character, you have this kind of cool artifact, which is one of the defining things about this series, right? Are all these little artifacts, right? The coins and the ticket, and all these little things that they do. So it's just sort of it would be really interesting to see them take that, whatever history he has, going forward into another movie. I think
it's almost the level of these characters that show up in here. You feel that, any one of these could kind of branch off and have their own. I mean, obviously we know they're doing it with Mia and Ballerina, right? That's her name. That was her name. there. Her
No,
daddy.
no. Ballerina is
Akira is the girl's name in the movie.
right.
She's not the one who's getting her own franchise?
No,
No,
well, no, that's
no.
Anna de Armas.
It's Ana de
Oh.
Armas is playing a character that you see in John Wick 3. She is the
literally the ballerina
who is dancing on stage by herself.
Okay, I completely misunderstood that. I thought this Akira character was the one who was, because if you sit through the end credits, it's apparent that we're getting something.
I am convinced that she's going to be in this ballerina movie. But speaking of the Osaka Continental, beautiful hotel.
The set pieces in this are just fantastic, and they're gorgeous, and every one of them just kind of ramps it up. Like, I mentioned this Arc de Triomphe chase scene at the end. Although, any guesses as to what my favorite action sequence was?
Is it the apartment sequence?
Unbelievable. This aerial shot where you literally look like you're playing Call of Duty on a Clue board game. It's just an aerial shot of all the rooms. Seamless. There's no way that they did this in one take, but it is seamless.
Well, I have some information about this scene.
Enlighten me, because I love this.
So it was inspired by the video game Hong Kong Massacre. You're right, that it had a video game influence. Stahelski was trying to find some way to make this scene interesting and to stand out from other scenes where they had already done in the other films where, he's fighting in a house, basically.
Right, yeah.
And they shot it in 3 days. The majority is in one take.
Wow.
And they used a camera, the kind of, it's called a spider camera. It's actually usually used for like football games and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
They basically, all the different elements were rehearsed, like as far as they could go. And then they all came together to try to do it all in one take.
Yeah, you probably can program that camera. You do the same swoop or the same pass through. Again, you watch these action sequences and it's like, how many times can you come up with something different or something new? And this really stood out to me. I thought this was fantastic.
And then they added the dragon's breath explosions in post.
Chad Stahelski actually was I think it was a Hollywood Reporter. They asked him about this because obviously this guy is living and breathing guns. Every one of these franchises, you have guns going off in people's faces left and right. They asked him about this as a stunt coordinator, as a stuntman. And he said, my feeling is there's no reason to have a live firearm on set. Mm-hmm. He said, the technology is out there. We basically use these fake guns. They're called electronic guns or plug guns. It's impossible for anything to come out of the barrel and everything else is CG. Yep. And what it comes down to is money. It comes down to money. He says, for prop houses who spent years and years building up these armories and these supply houses to suddenly switch over, someone's losing a job, someone's losing a ton of money. What are you going to do with all these guns? And so, it's unfortunate that people are losing their lives because studios are not willing to invest in safe technology.
But speaking of short range gunfire, my favorite sequence going back to the Osaka hotel sequence is when all these armored guys come in and he's shooting them like 3, 4, 5 times. They go down. And again, like a video game, you've got to shoot them like a number of times or like in the right spot through their armor.
Yeah.
And before that, when we were joking about Kane's character having to put down his noodles and get involved, he's putting these electronic magnetized things. I'm like, is he laying bombs? Is he laying bombs?
Yeah,
no, it's like his version of the ding dong ditch. Like
it's a Ring doorbell.
And so he knows where they are because he's blind. So he's by sound, he knows where all these assassins are coming from. And at one point, he does like a Popeye windup. Did you see that?
Oh,
before he hits somebody. And I just love whenever they're like faced off against each other before they start firing or what have you. It's like John, Kane.
Yes.
Did you read? He only has 380 lines of dialogue. That's it. 380 in this entire movie.
He doesn't need any more. Anymore.
No, less is more with John Wick.
And I think half of those are, yeah,
right. I think he had a little bit of when him and Kane were in the church, which was very reminiscent of The Killer.
Yes.
Of these guys hanging out. And I'm like, I'm assuming this is a Woo homage, maybe.
Well, I mean, Stahelski loves Hong Kong cinema. I think that comes
Well, it's
through
very- I was
in
gonna
all
say
of
it's
the all
very
of his
evident.
films.
Yeah.
And the kind of set pieces that are in this, these huge set pieces that go on and on, actually remind me of Hard Boiled, which we talked about before, where
Yeah.
they're so big and they're so elaborate and they just kind of keep escalating and escalating and escalating. And then of course it culminates in this scene at the Sacre-Cœur. And when he got kicked down the stairs the first time, it was so funny because in my theater, like one person started laughing and then it's sort of like suddenly everybody was kind of laughing as it
Yeah,
went
because
on
he
and
didn't
It's
on.
stop.
absurd.
It's not
Yeah,
he
no,
went
it was-
down every
it was-
single of those 222 stairs.
It was like every
Now,
time
I'm
he
like-
got to the platform, he's like pushing himself to
But
go.
at those stairs, they have something called the funicular,
Yeah.
which is a cable car kind of that runs up. I'm like, John, I'm sure
Just
that
take the
has
cable-
bulletproof glass. Get in there. And then you don't have to.
Oh, we didn't even
I don't
see
think
that.
it's running at that hour. The
Yeah,
funicular.
no, they did not show that because everybody would have been like, just get in that thing over there.
I kept waiting to see Max von Sydow roll by.
They probably had the camera on the track, so there was no way you could see that
That
cable car.
sequence went on a little bit too long for me. That was,
But
and I get it. It was a race to the clock. It was a race to the
Yes.
sunrise. It's again, I bring up Sisyphus. It's in, we've talked about this when we talked about all the other 3 movies leading into this. The idea of this kind of like Greek mythology that kind of hangs over all this stuff. Like you said, he just keeps going. It's like he's getting punched, he's getting shot, he's getting. It's like,
And then
let
but
this guy rest in peace.
one of the
please.
things that has to happen at Sacre-Cœur is you have to bring Kane back in, and then you have to bring the tracker back in, right? And they both come back in at this point in the story. So that obviously Kane has to fight John because the Marquis is a coward. And
We haven't even talked about Bill Skarsgård yet. He is unbelievable.
This
This guy is such a chameleon. At first, I'm like, is that Rami Malek? And I'm like, no, it's you hate this guy. You want him dead so bad. And especially when he decides that he's going to use Kane as his proxy, you're like, you jerk.
But again,
You're a
he is
piece of
just
crap.
he is just another pawn of the high table. And just speaking again to us talking about, you don't really see the high table. You don't see it with this guy either, because he's a representative of the high table. It's not like he's got.
I would not want that guy
himself.
representing me at all. What a weasel.
Yeah.
Oh,
But talking about, what you were saying before, Christina, about these set pieces ramping up to a conclusion. I'm going to go back to the Osaka Continental one again, because that one ramps up to Kane and the manager of the hotel. So that's the ultimate battle there. And the poor guy.
and that comes back to bite him in the ass.
And he doesn't want to hurt Koji.
No.
And that's the thing. I picked The Killer because I wanted to match a John Woo film with this, but it ends up thematically matching better than you think, because one of the things about Chow Yun-fat's character, right, is how reluctant he is to hurt anybody who is not a bad guy, right? He's like, and that's kind of what comes through here is like this idea that there's almost a concept of righteous killing, right? And that like whatever happens to Kane, he feels he deserves it because
he tells the daughter, to that point, go live. I'll be waiting for you.
Like he expects her to come back.
Absolutely. Were you excited when he pocketed that pencil? I'm like, oh, we're going to see the pencil trick again.
I was like, the pencil's going to come back.
I was like, giddy, right? Nice callback, by the way. Yes. And the other guy, I am Klaus. I'm like, is that Groot? The Groot has some additional work. Again, these characters, every one of these stupid little characters that come and go, you're like, I could watch an entire movie. This guy running around killing people going, I am Klaus. Very entertaining. Very entertaining.
Again, you kind of see, more layers. They've really followed through on this every single film where they try to introduce more layers. He decides that the way to take down the Marquis is to challenge him to single combat, which is like a new rule.
Torn tickets. Oh, but you can fix tickets.
You can go and get your ticket.
Some special high table scotch tape.
Yep.
Fix the ticket. And then, wait, there's a footnote to page 22A in the high table rule book.
Yeah.
Duels.
Yeah, all you gotta do is go back to your original clan who don't want anything to do with you.
Right. And then they
get back in their
brand
good
him.
graces. Yeah.
Right. They brand him to show that he's back in the
She didn't
family.
already have that brand.
That was Tonks, wasn't it? That was Tonks.
Yes, it is. It's Natalia Tina. Yeah. But I guess nobody else in the family had ever torn their ticket before.
No, I guess not. Right. She's like, I got to do this.
But they know just by talking to this guy that the high table is going to kill all of them too.
Right.
So,
yeah. Well,
but not if he wins. Right.
Not if he wins.
Yeah, and this was telegraphed. So how no one else realized that he did not fire his gun that third shot.
And
But
then they
still,
just kind of dismiss the marker in one line of dialogue in this movie. He's like, marker.
Yeah, screw the marker. Yeah, it means nothing. Did you get Warrior vibes when the DJ was
this is straight up an homage to the Warriors.
Okay.
That would have been a perfect pairing as well with this, would have been the Warriors, because there's like a half an hour segment where that
DJ
DJ
guy with some
going.
Coke glasses. Warriors.
Yeah.
Wick,
I know.
Come out and play.
John Wick, the baseball Furies are coming at you next on the subway platform.
Like, did they put an air tag on him?
I know.
I know.
That's what Jim mentioned before. Everybody's a super spy, and they're all on the streets, and they're just like calling in.
Actually, one of the things that was cracking me up though was like there are multiple car crashes around the Arc de Triomphe, and nobody stops driving.
I also love. Well, that was like when they were in the dance club. I'm like, they're shooting each other left and right. There's gunplay.
Oh my god!
People are dancing their asses off.
They're not stopping.
Until the fat guy falls off the steps, and they're like,
and suddenly they're like, maybe we should get out of here.
Right.
But if I never ever see a slow motion rave scene again in an action movie.
The rave.
I hate that. Like
2 hours of rave.
Like every action movie, the heroes got to walk through in slow motion. Do they think that that's dramatic? It's just stupid.
Yeah, because like you said, we're shooting people left and right. He's on the run. People are shooting at him. And now we just keep dancing, man. That's what we got to do. Dancing. Oh, yeah.
Like we said, in order to be even considered for this duel, he's got to be a family member. So he gets his ticket repaired. He gets his pass into the duel.
It is very convoluted the way they have to set this up, but it is a nice payoff.
Schedule the duel like right at the foot of the Eiffel Tower with the tower in the background. I'm thinking, let's do it at the Sacré-Cœur. Does the Sacré-Cœur condone such duels?
They know that's where you go and do duels. They had it all paced out. That's how Kate knew to go 20 steps, 10 steps.
And then, that whole sequence at the end of the rave with the fight with Jabba the Hutt. He's like Kingpin, pretty much.
Yeah, he's a big guy. Like I said, it's a fat suit. Imagine like fighting in that and the water's coming down. That thing had to have been waterlogged. But he's kicking ass. And again, it's a different take. He's going to town. He's beating up John pretty bad there for a while.
The tracker, Nobody, is kind of helping John through the movie because he wants the bounty to up and up and up and up.
Keep upping it.
And the Marquis just, again, sealed his own grave by impaling his hand and making him pull it out. It's like, this is not going to endear you to this guy who is a highly paid assassin.
That was rough.
Yeah, but I loved not just the final scene where, John doesn't shoot, right? Kane does. The Marquis is like, I'm going to take the right of the coup de grace, right? He's like, and I'm going to, now he's a tough guy. Now that he thinks John,
now that he's down, right?
Now he thinks John is out of bullets, which he's not. Yeah. And then Winston says, "You idiot!" Like he didn't fire.
We're all in the audience saying the same thing. You're an idiot. And clearly, he did not fire.
But the best thing about it is when the tracker's like, "That was good."
Yes, he's like drinking his big gulp or whatever with the dog. He's like, yeah, that's good. That's good. I like that. All right.
Because he's like a stand-in for the audience at that moment where you're all like, yeah.
All right. That was fun. Yeah. And we do, they set it up at one point, him and Winston. He's like, well, what do you want on your tombstone? It's like, oh, well, one of these guys is clearly going to die because we now know what they want on their tombstone.
But we never actually see.
No. This is totally a Sam Jackson. And
they definitely play fast and loose with, which is fine. End credit scene. You see John Wick sitting on the beach drinking a Mai Tai with his feet up, and he's got his puppy laying there with sunglasses on. I'd be happy with that.
But
Yeah.
This man needs to just enjoy what little life he has left.
I appreciated the tattooed rockabilly girls are back
Yeah, they're back.
Mhm.
in the office now.
And now they work in the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. This is just open. You know,
This is the
there's no
international
hiding this
contingent.
crime organization whatsoever.
Oh, there goes those girls going to
It
work.
actually says, if you didn't see a sign in French, high table office, like right above
With
on
an
the base
arrow,
of the
yeah.
Eiffel Tower. Yeah. So I was so disappointed, though, from the trailer. I'm thinking that table that they set up the Sacre Coeur duel was the high table from the
That
trailer.
That wasn't a high
Like,
table.
it's just a table. It's not the high table.
Right.
Tease me. You got to wait till John Wick 5 for the high table.
So, yeah, they keep holding Kane's daughter over his head to get him to play along throughout the entire movie until he, sees his chance at the end, because he does shoot John Wick at the, as they come back together. They're very precise about their hits. Like during the 3 points of the duel, Kane gives him that last quote unquote fatal shot. And as we said, John didn't actually fire in the confusion. And somehow the Marquis didn't catch that and takes it himself. And Clancy Brown's like, hey, I'm done. I can go get some breakfast.
That's right.
now.
I mean, from his point of view, he's like, everybody followed the rules here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So that's basically all he was
That's
there.
That's all I'm here for. I'm just to oversee.
This guy, the Harbinger, he could have his own run of inspirational quote posters that he could sell to businesses, because that's all he talks in are inspirational quotes. Lawrence Fishburne pretty much has turned into Q from James Bond in this. It sets him up with all of his stuff.
Yeah.
It is quite the journey. And I don't know how they outdid themselves with these particular action set pieces in this movie. But even with the other John Wick movies, which are nothing to sneeze at, I think they just completely overwhelm them. When you're thinking, maybe it's just because I'm so fresh seeing this movie, but I really was into it throughout the entire running time. So
even like the soundtrack, they threw in some pop culture songs without like beating you over the head with that stuff, but where I don't think they've done that before in the other ones. It was very entertaining.
I think that the Marquis, though, it was a bit of a wasted opportunity there. But, how much longer can the movie go on that he wasn't in like a really one-on-one kind of a situation with Wick? Because that's what I was waiting for. And I didn't.
But I mean, I think that it's pretty clear that he's the kind of person who avoids physical confrontations himself, right? He always keeps himself in a safe position.
But he's a young, lithe guy, If he was an older guy, I'd understand that. If he was like a Winston type, I'd be, okay, I see that makes sense that they're not going to go toe to toe. But I really wanted that. I wanted to see him get punished physically. Now, he goes down anyway at the end. I was
going to say, bullet to the head.
And then at the end, of course, you get the post-credit sequence all the way at the end. So you got to sit there.
Woo! No, you can run to the bathroom in the back because it was a long.
If they let you back in the theater, like the popcorn guy's like, nope, I'm already started. You can't come back in. So you do get Kane watching his daughter play the violin. And I had legit forgot about her, Akira, by this time. So I was like, oh, it's Akira. I totally forgot. That was like 2 hours ago when I saw her last.
Yeah, you thought she would have moved on with her life.
So I'm thinking, it's got to be in Ballerina. They can't just have this hanging out there, if they make a John Wick 5.
For some reason that this was the character that carries through. So, no, what do I know?
Yeah, but I'm worried about Ballerina. I am super worried because it's not Chad Stahelski.
He's not connected in any way, shape, or form. I would think with him being in control of this. Well, I mean, you could have a different director, but if he's executive producing it or overseeing it.
It's directed by Len Wiseman. And I know I mentioned this to you guys before. I'm just really afraid he's going to sexualize Ana de Armas the way he did with Kate Beckinsale in Underworld.
He will.
And I'm going to be furious because the one thing that these films don't do is unnecessarily sexualize the female characters. The female characters are treated with the same amount of respect that the male characters are. And I just know that that's going to upset me if that's what happens.
Well, let's reserve judgment until we see.
I would have liked at the end for the Harbinger to wear like a Grand Poobah hat when he was officiating over the like Fred Flintstone, right? Because he's the Grand Poobah.
Water buffalo, loyal water. Yeah.
All right, so what kind of buckets would we give to this movie? I'm excited to give the buckets out to this. I'm gathering my buckets right now.
Yeah, that's a lot of buckets you got over there. I'm going to go 4 1/4. It's the same as what I gave chapter 3.
I'm going to go 4.5.
Woo!
Wow.
Wow.
I can't remember what I gave. I'm going to say this one is a 4. I mean, I've consistently liked all of these films. I really still like 1 and 3 the best, but this is pretty darn good.
Yeah.
And now maybe there'll be a 5.
Maybe wink and a nod. Maybe. Yay.
And of course, Jim, you already mentioned this, but sure, now all of a sudden we've already hearing rumors of a potential Jet Li, Jackie Chan being pulled into this. Yeah, let's get everybody.
I mean, just because Johnny Yen's in
action
it,
movie.
so it'll end up like The Expendables.
There's nothing wrong with that. We could have a whole John Wick movie where John Wick's not even in it. Maybe they're searching for him.
Jason Statham is lining up for John Wick 5.
No,
let me tell you.
Jason Statham, you can stay in the Fast and Furious. We're good, thanks, dude. We're good. Anybody got Zachary Levy's phone number? Wow, Jim, that's high. That's pretty.
Yeah, I really liked it. I did like it.
Review right there.
I'm so glad that you liked it because I had a lot of trepidation of Jim's gonna hate this just because it's long.
I was going in with that frame of mind, but it won me over.
It does not feel long. I mean, yeah, when you sit through the credits and you're like, all right, there's an end credit scene.
Right, and you're like,
it really goes. It does not feel like it's a slog at all.
It's
Very
a good one.
fast-paced. Yeah.
This has been a pretty consistent series, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. That is the strength of having one director, one creative team,
one vision. Yep.
Yeah, who follows it all the way through, and everybody's committed. And look, I think most franchises would love to have 4 consistently good movies.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, so I think we need the break after this close to 3-hour runtime to go to the concession stand before our next movie starts. And Christina, you've been away, so it's your pick this week. Yeah,
so I picked Crunch, and there's something interesting about this because the Crunch bar, which I'm going to talk about, is not actually sold at the theater. What you get at the theater is the Bunch of Crunch.
Bunch of Crunch, right? I've got it right here.
Look at that.
But I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of the Crunch bar first, obviously, because you can't have a Bunch of Crunch without the Crunch bar. And the story behind how it was made is a little disputed. Has a slightly apocryphal feel, the origin story of the Crunch bar. It was made by Nestle originally in 1938. Like so many of our candies, it is pre-World War II. The Michaud family of Switzerland originally helped develop milk chocolate, and they were active in a company that would eventually merge with Nestle. And supposedly, Maurice Michaud helped create the Nestle Crunch Bar. He worked at Nestle's main production facility in upstate New York in the 1930s, and according to his great niece, he would bring home chocolate pieces from the factory, warm them up, add Rice Krispies, and then allow it to cool into chunks, and his family would eat them and as a treat. One day he brought them to the factory to share with coworkers, and supposedly, according to his great niece, everybody from line workers to plant managers wanted the recipe. And
they were doing backflips when he brought these into work.
All right.
It's stated, yes, the Nestle factory had a very collaborative culture, but this could be like a kind of family urban legend. Ultimately, yes, Nestle did make the Crunch Bar, but there's a financial reason why they kind of went large scale with the cooked rice, and it's because it was so much cheaper than other chocolate additives like nuts or caramel. So because rice was very inexpensive, it allowed Nestle to make a new product while keeping production costs really low. And actually, there's a whole drama with the rice. because they started to outsource the puffed rice. They worked with a milling company in Massachusetts that actually made rice-based breakfast cereal, and they would send their prepared rice to Nestle to put into the chocolate bars. But this company, the Van Brode Milling Company, had trouble meeting Nestle's demands because they couldn't make enough rice to meet, for the Crunch bars. So sometimes they literally did have to truck in bulk amounts of Kellogg's Rice Krispies to the Nestle factory to put in the Crunch bars. In 1960s, like in the mid 60s, they started to try to puff their own rice in-house. But the problem was, over many trial runs, that the rice wouldn't come out right. They want that crunch, right? That's part of it's in the name. So they were working on a two-step process of cooking the rice with steam and then drying it to a crispy texture, but it came out a mess. And then the other problem was volume. They calculated that they needed to produce 1,000 pounds of crisp rice an hour to meet the demand for Crunch bars.
Wow.
But by 1981, they'd figured it out, and they actually had a crisp rice department that had perfected and sped up the methods to the point where it could churn out 3,000 pounds of perfectly puffed rice each hour.
So this is Nestle you're talking about?
Yes, this is
making
Nestle.
their own rice. Okay.
Yes.
Hi, I work in the rice department.
Did somebody actually think to get a job at Kellogg's and see how they did it, and that's how they figured it out?
Just buy a bunch of Rice Krispies.
Like, how do you make Rice Krispies? Well, it's a demand problem, right? So, if Kellogg's is making Rice Krispies cereal to put in a box to sell in the store, they would probably need to double their production just to provide Rice Krispies for Nestle Crunch. So ultimately they decided, like I said, they did have to make it themselves, but they couldn't figure out how to do it at first. And they clearly needed a lot of rice to put into these Crunch bars. So the Crackle bar, which you may be familiar with, came out just a suspiciously few months after the Crunch bar.
In the 30s?
They're running out of adjectives.
Also in 1938, yep. But apparently there was one difference that Hershey tried to distinguish Crackle from Crunch by putting peanuts in it initially, and then that was dropped from the recipe by 1941. But Crunch won the standoff because by the 80s, Hershey had discontinued the full-size Crackle, and it's just now in the miniature bag.
Yes, that's one of the highlights for me in the Hershey miniature bag is the
Crackle. I didn't know they were only available.
Yep. So this brings us up to the actual concession stand. Crunch entered the concession stand market in 1994 with Bunch of Crunch. It's a box full of dime-sized crispy rice clusters.
It looks like rabbit droppings, actually.
Does it taste like rabbit droppings?
They had to do this
rabbit.
because bars tend not to sell well at the concession stand. People want something that's bite-sized or that's suited to repetitive eating, like Twizzlers. And Bunch of Crunch was only available in movie theaters from 1994 to 2012, when it finally became available in grocery stores.
Now, the thing that always impressed me the most about Nestle Crunch, even outside its wonderful taste and texture, was the actual embossed crunch on the bar.
Right, yeah.
And the ridge around the outside of the bar. I loved to see my progress as I was eating the word crunch.
Now it's just brunch.
But as as you were explaining this, you've dropped a word from your story. There's no more Nestle at the beginning of Crunch.
Yes. And I haven't gotten there yet. So
you're getting ahead of
and I can't.
I'm getting ahead of my story.
This is something I can't. I don't like this. I don't like it.
So, like so many of our products, Nestle sold Crunch Bar to. Does anybody want to take a guess who owns this company now?
They're like the high table Ferraro.
So in the U.S., it's made by the Ferrara Candy Company, which is based in Chicago, which is a subsidiary of Ferrero. And yes, there's no more Nestle Crunch. It is just a Crunch bar now.
Bring me back the crackle.
People still call it Nestle Crunch, though. I still think of it as Nestle Crunch.
Yeah, because I think that was part of the marketing, and you would think of it as a Nestle Crunch bar, not just as Crunch bar. But now that Nestle is no longer affiliated with this product, it is in fact just a Crunch bar.
Although the logo is still the same as it always was, the word Crunch itself.
Well, I mean, yeah, you got brand identity.
I'm curious though if they must still have it embossed in the full size bar.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. My son had one recently. It still says Crunch on it.
They just take a little razor and scrape off Nestle. Although, it's funny. I just made chocolate fondue last night, and I wish I'd thought of it. I would have added some Rice Krispies to it.
Mm-hmm.
Would have been a nice little chaser with the strawberries.
I also love, the Halloween size Nestle. I'm still going to call it Nestle Crunch. In the mini bars, because that's just good. And it's a little bit thicker, the mini bar, than the full bar is. So it's substantial. It's one of the better Halloween choices, I think.
The other thing that I used to like is that it was foil wrapped and then it had the paper around it.
Yes.
But now it actually comes in like a one piece wrapping. It doesn't have like the foil and then the paper. I really like unwrapping the foil around a chocolate bar. I don't know if it's that I keep hoping there's a golden ticket inside.
Because you have to fold the foil back like, and then you're disappointed.
Nothing.
So that's the story of the Crunch Bar, which made its inevitable way to the Ferrero Candy Company.
Quite the monopoly they got going over there.
Mm-hmm. Like so many of our products.
But Nestle still exists, right?
Nestle does still exist. They just don't make the Crunch Bar.
I would
Nestle
think that
is actually is like a big global conglomerate that produces so many things you have no idea. People think of it as a candy company. They make baby food, they make bottled water, they make coffee and tea, ice cream, frozen food, pet food, all kinds of snacks. Like they own Stouffer's, they own Espresso. They're one of the main shareholders of L'Oreal, the cosmetics company.
It's kind of like Kraft.
But yet they gave up their most famous lines and to this other company. So I would think that was a major business decision on the Ferrara company. Like, okay, we've got all this Nestle branded stuff. We can get away with not calling the stuff Nestle anymore, but the Crunch, how can we take, maybe they considered licensing the name from Nestle for a while, but it's still out there, so it worked.
I just hope that baby food is manufactured in a different factory than the chocolate.
Oh, for Nestle, you mean? Yeah, they are a major international conglomerate. I think a lot of people aren't aware of how many products that Nestle makes. I think, like from our generation, you just think of them as like a candy company.
Candy, yeah. That's, like I said, that's kind of like Kraft General Foods.
So let's take our bunches of crunches and go back to the theater. So we are watching The Killer. Mm-hmm. It's an 80s movie. It's that old.
Yes, 1989.
80s
Squeeze
movie.
it out right before the 90s hit.
Mm-hmm.
John Woo, The Killer.
Now, is this his first? It's not his first movie.
No. He had made quite a few films. He had made A Better Tomorrow, actually, and A Better Tomorrow 2.
A Better Tomorrow 2?
Yes.
Not A Better Tomorrow?
More than one there's more than one Better Tomorrow.
Okay.
The Better Day After Tomorrow.
Right, the day after Better Tomorrow.
Produced by Suey Hark, who had actually directed another film we watched a while ago, Detective D and the Mystery of Phantom Flame.
I remember.
So this stars Chow Yun-fat, who had worked with John Woo before, and Danny Lee, and they play respectively an assassin and a cop who's trying to track down this assassin. And this is I feel like this is in a lot of ways like really like the proto John Woo movie. It has so many.
Well, that's why I asked if this is first, because it does seem to be a lot of like tropes that he kind of leans into later that become like his signature trademark.
Yes, the doves.
Yep.
The church. He loves a standoff in a church because you also see it in Face Off, right? There's a standoff. There's a weapon standoff in a hospital. Not as elaborate as in Hard Boiled, but that is also here. But the big thing here is that it has a couple of really big action set pieces, but ultimately, I think this is a much quieter film than Hard Boiled.
Yes, there's barely an explosion in this.
Although when he was filming this, the film took about 90 days to film. 28 of those days were in the house shooting the scene where the house is under siege, and 32 of them were in the church.
Oh my gosh.
It wasn't trying to get the cat to jump through the window?
Yeah, you know what you do here? Close the window. If you're going to complain about a cat coming in the window, close it.
Or get a screen at least, because I'm sure bugs are coming in as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's not the only thing coming in your...
The other thing I want to mention really quickly is that 90 days was double the normal amount of time for a Hong Kong action film.
Oh yeah, they probably are down and dirty, right? They shoot.
So yes, which is why, when Tony Leung filmed Shang-Chi, he was very impressed by the number of safety precautions that were taken on an American film, because he had spent so much time working in Hong Kong cinema where they're like, just do it, just go.
Yeah. Half that was just finding striped suits for this guy.
So the film that has a really ultimately a pretty simple story, which is about this assassin named Ah Zhang. He's a paid assassin played by Chow Yun-fat, and he goes to do a hit in a nightclub. In the course of this hit, he accidentally, while actually trying to defend her from harm, accidentally blind. I was
like, how did that work out for you?
Yeah. He was trying to protect this singer, Jenny.
Who's like Karen Carpenter, by the way. I'm like, is she gonna start singing close to you?
Karen, I miss Karen.
He's trying to protect her, and he's firing at another gunman, and the bullet accidentally blinds her in the process. And he feels very, very responsible for this. And I think this is one of the interesting things about this film is that, like I said, it's this idea of like, he only kills bad guys and he doesn't want innocents to be harmed. And he feels terrible about what's happened. And he starts this relationship with her, but it's built on a lie because
she doesn't recognize him at all.
Yeah, but she just once it's all revealed, in the big you don't care. Like,
yeah.
Well, I think
was you.
I think we're supposed to think at this point, like the 6 months that he's been with her makes up where she's gotten to know him, right? You're supposed to believe that
because he's been lying to her for 6 months.
Right.
Not only did he lie to her once, but for an extended period of time.
Yes. We're not going to talk about it again.
So Danny Lee plays a cop, Inspector Lee, and he is trying to track down this killer because Lee is supposed to be protecting one of the marks that Ah Zhang kills later in the film. And but he becomes sort of fascinated by Ah Zhang because Ah Zhang potentially sacrifices his own freedom by taking a little girl who's caught in the crossfire to the hospital. Again, you're supposed to find him as a sympathetic character because he doesn't want bad things to happen to good people.
Yeah, as much as you can for a character such as this.
Right.
But I just love that these little things where the singer who was blinded, Jenny, she says there's one line of dialogue, "I'll never forget the man who blinded me." And you could see
Yep. Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Ah Zhang like doing the Rodney Dangerfield. Her vision is improving. What are you saying, doctor? So there's that whole getaway sequence where he's doing the hit, as you were saying, and then the girl unfortunately the little girl gets mixed up in it. But they weren't going to pay him off anyway because there was a whole cadre of bad guys waiting for him on the beach. How in the open can you be as an assassin? Like,
right. Yeah.
I'm going to speed off right now after I take the shot, and I'm the only boat in the entire bay.
And right, you can't just disappear on a boat because you create a wake. All you got to do is just follow those waves. Like, oh, he went there. There he went. So.
But that leads, this is, I thought that, I don't know if this was unintentionally funny or I just found it hysterical that his one friend that's still on the gangster side, all he wants to do is get him his money. It's like, yeah, I know that we want to kill you, but I want to get you your money. Right. It's just, I just feel guilty about this. And I
let me just get this off my shoulders.
I could even shoot you after I give it to you, but I just want to give you the money. And he doesn't let it go for the entire movie.
Well, he does at first. It can seem a little convoluted because the head of the triad is saying, well, the reason why I had to kill him is because his identity was exposed, but his identity wasn't exposed until you tried to kill him.
Right. That's a conundrum right there.
And then later, Ajang returns home and who's his friend, who's the triad elder, shows up with the suitcase and he's like, why didn't you leave yet? And he's like, I'm waiting for my money. But then he opens up the briefcase and it's full of paper, right? Because the triad has no intention of paying him. And then they send a bunch of people to the apartment to try to take him out. That doesn't work out so well for them.
No.
And it's at that point that says like, hey, you know what? I'm an elder. I deserve respect and I'm going to try to at least get this guy his money. That's where he becomes fixated on it. And he also helps Ajang at various points during the film to try to get away from the hitmen who were within their own organization.
Yeah, I think this guy's in the wrong line of work. His heart is just not in it. Like
customer service, right?
The film is so interesting because Inspector Lee becomes so almost enamored of Ajang and like his moral code. Even as he's trying to track down this guy, he shows up at the apartment and he's like, oh, he's trying to get into his head, all this kind of stuff. And then ultimately
with a heart of gold.
Yes. And then he does track him down to Jenny's apartment where there's a very funny scene where they pretend to be, they're holding guns on each other and they pretend to be old soccer friends from childhood. And they come up with stupid nicknames for each other.
Shrimphead.
And Small B. And they call each other this for the rest of the film.
And the cop, there's a backstory with the cop. There's a standoff, an unrelated standoff on a bus.
Right.
And he gets in trouble because he shoots somebody who is the bad guy on the bus who's taken a hostage, shoots him, but the hostage has a heart problem.
I was going to say, did she die of fright?
So they blame the cop for the heart attack. And it's like, well, how did you know it was the bad guy? Intuition. Oh, and the fact that he had a hostage.
and he had the gun to the girl's head.
Mm-hmm.
That was my second clue.
Yeah, so this guy is like, he's on the outs with his department already. So that's why there's maybe some simpatico between the two.
Right. Danny Lee here is playing a character who's ultimately refined and perfected by Chow Yun-fat in Hard Boiled as sort of the cop who's slightly outside of the system. For me, it's hard not to compare this to Hard Boiled, which came out 3 years later, which was John Woo's next film. And I think it's much less plot heavy than Hard Boiled. The action scenes are a lot more low key compared to Hard Boiled.
Yeah, no, like I said, it's kind of like training wheels are not off yet.
As well regarded as this is, I think it would make a fantastic riff tracks. I think that those guys could get into this with aplomb.
I think it's a pretty interesting film. You can kind of see what he was trying to go for. He's trying to create this dichotomy between the cop and the killer, who then are ultimately on the same side, and they're both sort of united in this need to like get Jenny to the mainland so that she can get a cornea replacement, which is what Ajang wants the money for. He wants the payment for this hit because he's trying to save her sight.
But yeah,
cornea
even
thing.
in that's like a treacly kind of, Jenny, we can get you that cornea transplant. I just got to do this one more hit, then we're off to America. But I love there's certain things in here that just made me kind of, cry out, especially the hit scene where he's in the boat and he's got to assassinate the senator or whoever it is, the official. Mm-hmm. And it's a complete George Romero through the scope, Dawn of the Dead headshot that he does. Mm-hmm. I'm like, that has to be on purpose. That looks exactly like the zombie headshot in the mall in Dawn of the Dead. So I love little things like that.
Zombie. I did. Speaking of that one guy got a bullet to the head and still kept on driving. It's like, yes. Real little Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid there standoff ending.
Yes, right. This is the very elaborate church scene.
But
where there's just an endless supply of potentially multiplying hitmen.
And endless bullets too. The police like storm that church and are like, all right, let's give him time to say goodbye to his friend and then we'll advance. Okay. All right. So, but how do you shoot his eyes out without like taking a bullet right through the brain? How do you shoot someone's eyes out?
Oh, at the end, you mean?
Yeah.
Right. Well, it's just supposed to create that very tragic shot of the two of them
past each other. Yeah. Just follow the anguished moans and you'll be able to find each other.
Just reach out. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, Zhang was probably pretty disoriented. It was really up to her to find him.
Yeah, but Jenny's used to it. Jenny's used to it by now.
Just ask Kane. He'll tell you how to do it. So you mentioned, so this is weird because I watched this, I rented it from the library and obviously I'm watching it subtitled and you say his name is Ajong.
Yep.
But apparently that's wrong.
Right.
So the early subtitles on these early DVDs, like his name is Jeff or John.
Yes, in some of the subtitled.
Like the mistranslations are like all over the place. I'm like, how does that happen?
Prince. It's, a lot of these Hong Kong films, when they came over to the US initially, they were done by like these cheapy distribution companies that just like wanted to quickly release them on video. And you would get like basically a really fast and dirty translation, which wouldn't necessarily be accurate. The version that I have is the Dragon Dynasty print and it's a Blu-ray. So the translation is pretty good and the print's been cleaned up. You get this actually with a lot of, foreign films, especially Asian film, like that came over here in the 90s, like on video. You get like these cheap distribution methods.
Did you get the character's name right though?
Yeah,
and they just a little much.
And they just do these crummy translations.
Mm-hmm.
Did Jenny ever stop crawling? Did we see her stop crawling at the end, or is she still crawling
she's still
to
going.
this day?
She's still going.
Yeah. Well, hopefully
he said, "I'll keep an eye out for her."
Hopefully, Smallby, kept his promise and took the money,
bought her new eyes,
and got her new eyes.
Mm. And Smallby is cradling shrimp head. Shrimp head.
Wu improvised pretty much all these action sequences. Doesn't work with storyboards. He's just like, I just want to be a whim in the mall. Imagine like trying to film this stuff. It's gonna be a nightmare. All right, now let's go over here. Now move here. It's like, I mean, now these things are so plotted out and they're so planned out. But
he knows what he wants when he sees it. But I think, like I said, this is still early in his career. But by the time he gets to Hard Boiled, the sequences, like especially in the hospital, is so elaborate.
Yes, yeah. Well, yeah.
He really had to do a little more advanced planning.
And then when he escapes the hospital and the cops go to chase him and it's like the keys are gone. The suspect escaped. Why? I left the keys in the car.
You what?
I mean, it was in a hurry. What's funny is we who grew up using keys on cars, I don't know about you, but I still always think of having a key on like my key ring for a car. But I was writing a scene for my book that's going to come out this year, and it was being copy edited. And I mentioned the key on the key fob for this character, and the copy editor was like, is this a really old car? Because they don't even have keys anymore.
I
Usually you
still
just have a
have
little
keys on my
you
car.
just have a little but it depends on the age of your car, but like
2009 and 2011.
we had our car that we just got rid of was 15 years old. It still had a key, and there was still a keyhole in the door.
What am I supposed to do with this?
But our new car
has
fob. Just a fob.
It's just electronics that can be screwed up. What happens if you still need to carry the fob on you?
Yes, you have to carry the fob. But
and what happens when the battery goes out? Then you're stuck until you get a new battery.
Right. Although I will tell you, I knew this kid who constantly locked his keys in his car with it running. So maybe doing away with keys is a good thing. Shrimp head.
They must have a T-shirt that says "Shrimp Head" with.
Well, I gotta make one though
with Chow Yun Fat on it.
On my disc, it was dedicated to Scorsese.
He wanted this movie to be. He was using Mean Streets and Les Samurai, which is a French film with Alain Delon, if you've never seen it, as influence for this film. He really admired Scorsese.
That's one way to get noticed. I dedicate this to you, Mr. Scorsese.
All right. What kind of buckets would we give to The Killer?
I'll go 4. I enjoyed it. I liked it.
Yeah, I'm also going to say 4. For me, like Hard Boiled is the action standard, and I know that I rank that higher than this because that's one of my all-time favorite movies. But I think if you like John Woo films, you can really see like where his sort of ideas and his style really starts to coalesce.
Yeah, no, this is really kind of like the blueprint for where he went moving forward. So
I think I didn't like this as much as Hard Boiled. I'll agree. But there's a lot it was actually an entertaining watch because there was laughs to be had, some intentional and some not. So I'm going to go 3 1/4 with this one.
Okay, fair enough.
The Killer. So, all right. What else did we do this week?
Oh my gosh, I did so much this week.
Where do I start?
One of the things I want to mention is that I'm reading a book. I'm almost done. It's a nonfiction book called Meet Me by the Fountain by Alexandra Lang. And it is a cultural history of the mall in the US. And it's pretty interesting, actually, how the mall was initially perceived, how it was developed, how it came to occupy American culture. And I started reading it after our trip to the Mall of America.
Oh, yes, I saw you were in Minnesota.
The biggest. Have either of you ever been to the Mall of America?
I've been there. Yeah,
I have not. Nope.
Yes.
It is incomprehensibly
it is ridiculous.
Large.
There's a full amusement park in there, Jim.
There is a full amusement park in the center of this mall. There's 4 floors, and there's like 4 halls going off the center. We were there for about 8 hours, and we saw maybe a quarter of it. It's so big.
I think there's also like 56 lids. The hat stores.
I didn't see any duplicated stores.
Gotcha.
I mean, there's an aquarium in this mall. There you can go mini golfing inside this mall.
Yeah, sure.
Which we did. It is so big.
But think about the logistics of it, because Minnesota, you deal with the weather, so it makes perfect sense of one-stop shopping for everything and anything.
Oh yeah, when we were there, it was -10 outside.
Yeah,
so
right.
And our hotel was across the street, and there was a little covered bridge. You could go over the road to get into the mall from there. But it was a thing. I feel like everybody needs to see this at least once in their life.
It is a destination, yeah.
Well, like the Palisades, that's probably the biggest mall that we've got in our New York area. But last time I was there, which was probably a year ago, I was noticing a lot of closed stores. Is that the case at the Mall of America?
No.
That was really the thing that got me, is that every single space is full and people are shopping, and part of it is that it's not just like typical mall stores, you know, you see the sort of ones you see at every mall, right? You see a Hot Topic, you see a Journeys, you see whatever, but they also have like a lot of local businesses have space in the stores. And that was one of the things that we were looking around for. My son wanted to go to, like, there was an anime store and there were a few other things. And, you know, every space is full. Every space is full and people are shopping, and there are hundreds of people in the mall, but the mall is so big, they're kind of distributed in a way that you don't really, you know, when you're at a smaller mall and it gets crowded, you feel how crowded it is, you know, but this mall is busy. People are shopping. There's like every stall is full. It's crazy. It's great. There were 100 people standing outside the Lego store. Like there was a line to go into the Lego store.
Yeah. And meanwhile, we just had the Westchester in White Plains close. And again, that was probably a 3rd+ story building. It was a massive mall.
Well, I think that, and one of the things that's been interesting about reading this book, which I highly recommend if you're interested in any of this, is this idea that the mall was originally built to be like a community center. And one of the things that the Mall of America has done is it's made itself a place for more than just shopping. So like you go and like you can ride the rides.
Yeah, like exactly. It's a destination experience. Yeah.
Right. You can do other things. So what they've done is they've sort of made themselves more than just a place to shop. And I think that's what's killing some of these other malls, is that they don't have anything to do except to go to a specific store and get your thing and go home.
Well, my local mall, the Jefferson Valley Mall over here, we just put in a new store. There's a lot of storefronts that are closed, and they put in a couple workout facilities, 24-hour gyms. The Sears is gone. We have the anchor stores, the Macy's. But we now have a store that just moved in, and they do like sports memorabilia and a lot of autograph stuff, but they are doing a lot of events. They're bringing in Henry Winkler is going to be here in a couple of weeks. A lot of wrestlers. There's a lot of sports guys that are coming. So whatever it takes to get people back in the door, events, we did, the podcast, we did a couple little mini Comic Cons last year or 2 years ago. Well, it's pre-COVID, so it's probably more than that. But I mean, I
think that's how like malls need to like reimagine themselves, or they think, going back to the book that I'm reading, like the original conception for a lot of these malls was that it would replace like a town square. So there would be like a doctor's office, a barber, like all the things that you would get in a town square, you would get in a mall. And maybe malls need to reconsider and reconfigure their spaces with that in mind.
Yeah, they were big. I mean, that was huge as a kid growing up in the 80s, going to the mall. And now, I can just order anything I want on Amazon.
Anyway, it's an interesting book. Meet me by the fountain.
Interesting. Okay, what time?
Pick it up. I'll see you at 11:30 so we can go to the food court.
Oh, cool. My food court's got nothing. When you lose Burger King, there's an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Jim, what'd you do last week? Anything?
I watched the new show on Amazon that just came out a couple of days ago called The Power. It was really good.
Oh, yes, The Power.
I really recommend it. It's based on a phenomenon and you have multiple characters all over the world. Over the course of a couple of weeks during the first 3 episodes of this show, teenage girls find that they have the power everywhere to transmit electricity through their fingers, through their hands. Are they
finally going to rise up and take us over?
To white guys? To a lethal degree in some cases.
Oh,
I guess the show, over the course of the show, will be about the change of the balance of power between the sexes. But at this point, they just dropped the first 3 episodes, I think, on Friday, and it's very much, it just has happened. So all these girls that you're introduced to around the world, some are like noble type characters, some not so much. So we're seeing how they're using this new power to their advantage. And they're explaining that it's like some kind of a dormant organ, like that's similar to what an electric eel has. Oh. And that it's just genetically coming to the fore, I think maybe through puberty or something, really? Girls have this and boys don't.
Great. That's all I need. My wife electroshocking me.
Well, if you
I
ever watched
actually, yeah.
women talking, you would know that some men deserve that election.
Oh no, I'm sure a lot of men. You don't have to convince me. I know probably most men deserve to be electroshocked at some point in their lives. I'm not dismissing that at all. Oh, interesting. I'm gonna have to check that out. So I actually, based on last week's conversation about Tom Hanks, followed up on a recommendation that you had mentioned, Jim. You had talked about the fact that Joe versus the Volcano is
Yes,
a Tom Hanks movie you are very fond of. And I can honestly say I probably have not seen it since I saw it in the theater way back when. And so I said, you know what? I should probably revisit that. It just fell off HBO Max. It was dropping off April 1st. So I'm like, all right, I'll take a look. This is a weird, odd. It's just as bizarre as I remember it being. You know, we talked earlier about, you know, studios taking chances on these little kind of quirky films that just don't get made anymore. Because Tom Hanks, it's, first of all, I couldn't get past the mullet for the longest time. But half of it looks like it was filmed like on a high school soundstage. And then the other half is like this weird, dreamy, Meg Ryan is playing 3 completely different characters. And he finds out he's got some kind of brain fog and he's going to sacrifice. He's been hired to jump into a volcano. It's really bizarre, but I enjoyed watching it because it is so unique and definitely different. And Ozzie Davis, who shows up as a chauffeur at one point, is a treat to see. I wanted to see more of that character. So unfortunately, like I said, it's no longer on HBO Max, but I got a chance to check it out, and maybe it's somewhere else. Maybe it's floating around on Tubi. Who knows? Right. One of those forgotten Tom Hanks movies. So. Yeah. So that's it. That's what I did.
So what are we doing next week? It's a special episode.
It's our Easter spectacular.
I will not be here for this conversation because I am going off on a pilgrimage to see all the places in Rocky.
Oh, is that what you're doing?
Gonna go to South 9th Street Italian Market. Gonna go to the Philadelphia Museum of Art. Gonna go to the Rocky statue. You're
gonna punch some sides of beef.
I don't think they let
they don't let you do that. You can't just walk into the meat market now and start punching away.
Yeah.
Get some gloves on and go for it. So very cool. Yeah, you're gonna miss out because we're talking Snow Beast and Creature from Black Lake.
Yeah, it's a cryptid spectacular. We're talking Bigfoot.
This is gonna be a big one. I may never recover.
So that's on tap for next week. And as always, thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go see John Wick 4.
Yes, absolutely. Well worth it.
All right, everybody.
Okay.
Bye.
Hey, everybody. If you like what you just heard, be sure to follow TMI Confessionals of the Nerd Kind on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or whatever you listen to your favorite podcasts on. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and then share it with your fellow movie nerd friends. It means the world to us and helps our listenership grow.
You can also find us on all of the socials, Instagram and Twitter at TMI_podcast 2018. We're on Facebook and YouTube as well. Just look for the Popcorn Bucket.
You can help support this show by visiting our TeePublic page for some TMI branded goodies such as hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, and stickers. TeePublic.com/TMI Confessionals, all one word.
A 5-star review would be incredibly nice as well. I'm just saying.
Thanks again for listening. We truly appreciate you. Be sure to come back next week. We'll save some popcorn for you.
And
yeah.